I gained 20 pounds of lean muscle in just 6 months without getting fat. Most people think you have to choose between being a big bodybuilder, a strong power lifter, or even just a lean athlete. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why you should be focused on all three of these so you can build the Dark Knight physique. All right, and guys, the Dark Knight physique is basically going to be a Batman type of physique that's focused on building strength, aesthetics, and being athletic. So you're going to be very strong like Batman, very athletic like Batman, and have a really good body like Batman does. If you're training only like a power lifter, yeah, you'll get strong, but you're going to look very bulky or fluffy even. All right, if you're training only like an athlete, yeah, you'll move well, you'll function well, but you're going to stay very small. All right, if you're training only like a bodybuilder, you're going to have a very good looking physique, but it's not gonna be as good if you're not as strong, right? Imagine having a very aesthetic physique, but you're not strong, right? Like you got to be strong. You're gonna be useless in a fight if you don't train the other things too. So in this video, I'm gonna teach you guys how to combine all three of these so you guys can build the best physique possible. So the first pillar we're gonna be focusing on to build the Dark Knight body is strength. All right, think of strength as the foundation, like the base of everything. You don't think of it like the foundation. If you don't have strength, building an athletic or a aesthetic body is going to be very hard. It's going to be nearly impossible because of the amount of disadvantages you will face whenever you're trying to do it, right? So for athletic body, for instance, let's say you're playing the sport, right? You don't got the strength and now you're weak, you're getting manhandled, you're getting thrown around like you're like a victim weight basically, right? You're just a little baby, right? And for the aesthetic body, it's going to be very hard to build a aesthetic body without strength because without strength, the gains are going to be very minimum whenever you're, building an aesthetic body. It could even actually be worse if you don't progress over time. All right. So in order to build true strength in the gym, you need to do progressive overload. You need to focus on progressive overload. If you don't know what progressive overload is, it's basically going to be getting better every single time, getting better every session, every single time. So for example, let's say you can only bench 135 pounds for 4 reps. Let's throw an example out there, 4 reps. The next session you go to lift bench press, you want to focus on doing 135 for 5 reps. All right, and that's going to be a little bit better every single time. Just even that 1 rep, it's going to be better every time. And that's the goal for progressive overload. Literally get better every time. You don't want to stay the same weight. Sometimes, yes, you will stay the same weight. It happens. Sometimes you just don't get stronger, right? It's completely normal. But for the most part, you basically want to be progressing every single week. All right. That's the goal for progressive overload. The best method for, progressing into progressive overload is to actually just track your lifts. So basically you can get like a journal, you can get the notes app on your phone, and you can write down the exact lift you did and how much reps and sets you did for it, for instance, and put the weight you did. So let's say, again, 135 pounds for bench press, you can only do that for 4 reps. The next week, you want to shoot for 5 reps. And if you get to 5 reps, then you edit it, you change it, and you turn it to 5. And you just keep doing that over and over and over and over again. And eventually, your strength is really going to explode. You're going to have really good strength over a certain amount of time doing progressive overload. The next thing you need to focus on is compound lifts. So I'm going to show you guys a clip of my course talking about why compound lifts are actually important. But now, ultimately, to actually get stronger in the gym, you must prioritize compound lifts with progressive overload. All right, so these are going to be the main 2 things you guys need to focus on: compound lifts and progressive overload. The reason why compound lifts is important is because compound lifts hits multiple muscle groups. All right, multiple muscle groups getting hit at the same time is going to really like strengthen you, right? Because whenever you're, lifting or picking stuff up, or maybe you're like trying to push someone, fight someone, right? You don't just got one muscle group being activated. You got multiple muscle groups being activated when you do stuff like that, when you do your day-to-day tasks. All right, so that's where the true strength actually comes in, right? So the best way to implement this is to start your workout with 1 to 2 compound lifts. All right, so you can focus on hitting all those different muscle groups. All right, if you follow this step by step, you will build strength in no time, I guarantee you. All right, so focus on progressive overload and focus on compound lifts, and eventually that strength will, it will tower, it will skyrocket, it will explode, like I said. The second pillar we're going to be talking about is athleticism. All right, athleticism gets overlooked by like everyone in this space for whatever reason. I don't know why, but everyone overlooks athleticism in like this fitness space, right? Most people would tell you to focus on strength and aesthetics, but they would never tell you to focus on athleticism, right? They kind of just, talk about, oh, do a little bit of cardio and, you'll be good, bro. But, that's not really going to cut it, right? Athleticism is going to, be great for staying lean, right? It's going to be good for functioning correctly, and it's going to give you a lot of speed, endurance, coordination, durability. And the best way to build athleticism or just stay consistent to cardio in general is going to just be playing a sport, right? So, like I said, you hear your typical advice talking about go run a mile, go hop on the treadmill for a little bit. Yeah, it works for cardio, right? Yeah, you might lose some fat from doing that, but it's not going to be fun, right? It's not going to be fun. Anyone who's actually done cardio like that knows that it is not fun to do cardio like that. So, the best way to do cardio is to do what I like to call fun cardio. And the reason why I call playing the sport fun cardio is because you're basically playing a sport, you're getting the right cardio in while, mindlessly doing it, right? You're mindlessly hitting cardio whenever you play a sport, because whenever you play a sport, you're gonna be focused on the objective. So, for example, let's just say basketball, right? For basketball, if you play basketball, you're gonna be sprinting back and forth on the court, jumping all the time whenever you shoot the hoop without even realizing it, right? Versus the person who's just doing, oh, I'm gonna do plyometrics, I'm gonna go sprint a little bit and then do some jumps, and that's gonna be my cardio workout. The person who's playing basketball is going to have a lot more fun than the person who's just doing plyometrics, right? So don't listen to typical advice where they tell you just to hop on the treadmill and stuff. I mean, by all means, if you like doing that, sure, go ahead and do it, but you got to stay consistent to it. Whenever you play a sport, it's so much easier just to stay consistent to it. Another reason why typical cardio methods like go running on the treadmill for 30 minutes is bad advice is because of the muscle fibers. So you have slow muscle fibers and you have fast muscle fibers. And the ones we want to activate is fast muscle fibers, because fast muscle fibers will make you more explosive, strong, and it will overall just be like the most strongest, muscle fiber you get to activate, right? Slow muscle fibers, you activate slow muscle fibers whenever you're doing, running the treadmill for 30 minutes. Anything that's long distance that you need a lot of endurance for, you're basically just going long distance. So, like, let's say run 3 miles, right? That's going to activate your slow twitch muscle fibers. We don't want to do that. We want to activate our fast twitch muscle fibers, which is going to be basically your sprints, your jumps, or just playing like a sport like basketball, football, soccer. All right, you play sports like that, and you're gonna activate your fast twitch muscle fibers easily. All right, without even having to think about it. So that's why another reason why I recommend doing a sport instead of your typical cardio. Like I said, if you don't really care about being athletic, I guess, but being athletic will give you a big edge over the people who don't focus on athleticism, and they only focus on the typical cardio. All right. Also, whenever you play a sport, it's gonna motivate you to keep getting better and better and better, especially when you play against people who are better than you, right? It's gonna really motivate you to become better than them. So how do you do that? Maybe on your free time, you'll be more focused on actually recovering better, eating better, right? What else? Doing like workouts like plyometrics, isometrics, so you can strengthen your legs, tendons, ligaments, so you can be more explosive on whatever workout you're doing or whatever sport you're doing. It's gonna motivate you a lot more to do workouts like that, like sprinting, jumping on your free time, versus the person who's just doing it because they got to hit their cardio. They're gonna be a lot more, they're not gonna enjoy it as much, right? So when doing cardio this way, you will see 10 times the athleticism while still enjoying it. So like I said, I recommend just playing sport. You can join like your local team. You can go play pickup soccer at your local soccer field, pick up basketball at your local basketball court. All right, there's so much options for playing sports. All right, and there's communities for this. You can join a community and actually get good at the sport. All right. Finally, we're going to be talking about aesthetics. This is the third pillar, aesthetics. So basically, you can have all the strength and athleticism in the world, but if you don't have aesthetics, you're going to look very unimpressive, even if you do have all the strength and athleticism in the world, right? Aesthetics is going to be basically where you see a lot of the results from your hard work, right? So you need to be making sure you're focused on aesthetics. I'm going to give you guys some action steps in a little bit after we cover aesthetics. But for building aesthetics, you really just want to focus on hitting, your chest, your traps, your shoulders, lats, upper back, biceps, and abs. These are like the main 7 muscle groups you want to focus on for building an aesthetic physique. Usually your ideal aesthetic physique for a man is going to be building a V taper, right? So this is going to be your wide shoulders, small hips type of look, right? And the reason why this is the third pillar, not like the first or second pillar, is because hitting these muscle groups effectively won't be done without strength. So you got to have strength. You can't just skip all the steps and start with aesthetics and then, work your way up on other stuff. You got to start with strength. Like I said in the beginning, strength is the foundation. So if you want to build strength, athleticism, and aesthetics, you need to start by following a push-pull leg split plan. This is usually going to be the best plan because it's very, very balanced, right? You only go to the gym 3 times a week. Monday, you can hit push. Wednesday, you can hit pull. Friday, you can hit legs, right? Push day is going to be chest, shoulders, triceps. Pull is going to be back, biceps. And Friday is going to be your legs, basically, right? The reason why this plan is so good is because, like I said, it's very balanced. And on the days you're not working out, you can do other stuff, or you can just rest, right? It's so easy to stay consistent to a push pull leg split plan. So I recommend everyone do the push pull leg split plan. Now that you got the plan, next you want to actually just go to the gym and prioritize compound lifts. So instead of, some people like go to the gym, they just focus on hitting like one muscle group. They might go there and do some bicep curls and head out. All right, instead of doing that, you want to start. So since we said bicep curls, we're going to use pull day as an example. Instead of doing that, you want to do 1 to 2 compound lifts. So for example, you start your workout with pull-ups. All right, whenever you do pull-ups, you're going to be working out your back muscles and you're going to be working out your biceps too. All right. Then at the end of the workout, you can then, hit the aesthetic muscle you want to hit. So now you can work on the biceps. So you can do stuff like bicep curls, hammer curls, preacher curls. All right, there's a lot of bicep workouts you can do for growing bigger biceps. And now you can work on the biceps. And not only did you work on the biceps this workout, you also, really worked on the back. And for building the V taper, the back is very, very important. So basically what I'm saying is after you finish your compound lifts, after like the first 1 to 2 compound lifts you do in the beginning of your gym workout, then you go and work on the aesthetic muscles for the rest of the workout. All right. Obviously, you don't want to do all 7, but you want to do a couple of them, right? Then, whenever you're done with the full gym workout, like you're done working out, you're done lifting, you want to go and play a sport, right? So, this is whenever you go to, a soccer field, basketball court. For me, my gym has basketball courts in it, right? It has a basketball court, it has a swimming pool. So, you can go and hop in the swimming pool if you want. You can go hop in the treadmill if that's what you like to do. But what I like to do is I like to go and to the basketball court and play basketball in there for like 30 minutes to an hour with a whole bunch of random people and play pickup basketball. That's the easiest cardio of your life while you're just sprinting, jumping and activating those fast twitch muscle fibers we were talking about earlier in the video. If you follow this plan, you will maximize your training gains. I guarantee you, you will build the body like Batman as the time goes on. All right, now if you made it this far in the video, I wanted to give you guys some extra, tips. So if you can follow all, the pillars that I gave you guys, you can follow the action sets I gave you guys. But if you don't have your recovery dialed in, you're not going to see as much gains. Like you're really going to leave a lot of gains on the table. You're going to be very fatigued. So you got to be focused on your recovery. So for recovery, I recommend lean bulking while you're doing this so you can get more energy. Lean bulking is basically going to be eating on a surplus while eating only clean foods. All right, no bullshit. All right. Next, you're going to get 9 to 10 hours of sleep. This is going to be very good for spiking that HGH, human growth hormone, for your body. While you sleep, whenever you sleep, you're going to get all of your recovery through sleeping. All right. And also just take your rest days, right? Rest days are very important. I learned it the hard way. If you don't take your rest days, you're going to risk getting an injury. You're going to risk getting sick. It's all types of bad things that happen if you don't take your rest days. So take your rest days. All right. Like I said, the push pull leg split plan will basically allow you to take 3 to 4 rest days a week. All right. So now instead of following that typical fitness advice that everyone tells you to pick between the 3, it's possible to combine all 3 at once with the right mindset and plan. All right, if you want the exact workout plan that I use for each pillar, it will be in my course, link in the description. All right, if you made this far in the video, like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you guys can never miss an upload, and comment down below which is your favorite training style because they're all 3 different things. So if you enjoy lifting heavy weights the most for strength training, if you enjoy lifting for aesthetics the most, let me know in the comments down below. And if you just really love playing sports a lot, let me know in the comments down below. I'm very curious to see what your favorite training style is. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Yo, go build that Batman body, bro.